Rick Szabo was a guy who, like me, has been a local performer for a long time, but he also got into production management and promoter, putting on shows around the place. And his story is pretty unique. There's a lot of lessons to be learned by what he's gone through. Please check it out and have a lot of fun listening to it. If you enjoy the episodes, please subscribe now. I'm getting slowly better at this. Subscribe now. If you have a story to tell, email me at aussielocalandlive@gmail.com. I would love to interview you if you're in the local gig economy. And if you'd like to help support the marketing efforts of this platform, please go to my tip jar. Just put your camera on that QR code and it will take you to my website where you can toss some digital money into that place if that's okay. Anyway, enjoy the chat with Rick Szabo. He's a really great guy. Give it a sec and gets into life. Hey, I've got a mate I'm talking to tonight, a fellow warrior in arms in the music scene, Mr. Rick Szabo. How are you, Rick?
Hey, Nick, I'm fantastic, mate. Great intro, too. We are warriors.
We are. And we're Northside boys.
Yeah, both Northside boys, mate. I like to call us, there's a bloke I still talk to who's an agent in Sydney, and he calls us the last of the Mohicans. I like that. We are,
mate. We are, mate. We are. We've seen the roller coaster ride, and what I'm trying to do with this little experiment I'm doing is capture some of the stories. And mate, I know you've got you've had a real interesting journey yourself, and you've been a musician, mate, you've been a promoter, you've been a production guy. You sort of seen it from all angles. Mate, what got you into the game to start with?
Oh, just nothing but passion. I was the kid that had the headphones on in his room at night, mate, listening to the music and reading the liner notes. That's where it all started. It was all about Bob Ludwig at Masterdisc and all these guys. I wanted to know who played that note, who sang that note, here, there, and everywhere. And I was just completely consumed by it as a kid, mate.
Mate, what were your early influences? What sort of were you listening to?
Mate, my earliest influences was anything with a great vocal. Mm-hmm. and a great guitar line, and it was always about the melody first.
Yep.
A lot of people are into the words. It's always got to be a pleasing melody to me.
Yeah. What was your genre, mate? What were you pulling off the album first?
Oh, mate, God. It really started with mate, as a kid, I don't rate anything until probably 15 or 16 when I considered myself to be a serious connoisseur of rock music with Kiss, of course, mate.
Okay.
So, everything before
that. You were in the army.
I was in the army. The walls were painted with Kiss posters and memorabilia, mate. And, the whole box and dice. I'd have friends over from school and we'd have our own little Kiss parties at night, mate. Pretty serious stuff.
Mate, I can't remember what year it was when they played at Lang Park, but I couldn't afford to get tickets, but we actually went and I remember parking outside and listening to it outside. You were probably inside there, were you?
No, my mother banned me, mate.
Really?
Brought up by, mate, long story, and we won't go too much into it, but I'll just tell you that my beautiful parents that raised me were from Hungary and Germany. Hungarian father, German mother, so pretty Catholic sort of background. And anyway, they'd migrated out here and we assimilated as Australians. And that's a whole other podcast if we talk about that. But dare I say that, Mum was a strict Catholic and listened to the parish priest at Banyo who decided that KISS stood for Knights in Satan's Service.
Yeah.
And that there is no way on earth that I was going to that concert, whereas a few good friends of mine, snuck out the bedroom window and quite a few people I know went. But no, not this little black duck, sadly.
Mate, I remember so many concerts I couldn't afford to go to. I remember sitting outside the festival hall listening to Rod Stewart.
Wow.
It was just all those things back in those days. But, mate,
Nick, I missed the train. I'll say this. I missed the train to see Thin Lizzy at one of our Freeps concert at the Botanical Gardens. There's an opportunity of a lifetime gone, you know.
I remember seeing, not here, once again, hearing him from outside. Thin Lizzy did the thing in the Roma Street Parklands at one time. And I remember them drive some. I think we were driving with my parents in and listening. We could hear them play, and but that whole. I'm doing a little show at the moment called 70s Unplugged Show, which is.
I've noticed it looks really good, mate.
Well, I've kind of got video that I do with it, and I'm sort of trying to do it up. But it's me reliving some of those songs that I grew up with, and that whole generation.
Well, people need to understand that you lived it. We lived it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the 70s were. From your singer-songwriters through to your heavy metal people, it really was a generation where, you had good music come out in the 60s, but I think that songwriting evolved in the 70s. And I listen to artists like, whether it's Neil Young as an example, he was a kid when those albums pretty much came out. And the quality of the writing they were doing as kids, it's just like, how did they do that? I don't get it.
Don't these guys really, every great band really, Nick, had a message, and you could identify that message because you tap into it. And we didn't care that we didn't know about videos or anything. It just, all we cared about, mate, was what we were listening to with our ears and what turned us on. That's it.
There were two albums to me. I remember just studying the liner notes so much. One was Venus and Mars from Paul McCartney and Wings, and Jackson Browne's Running on Empty. They were like two albums to me that really influenced me. Probably Jackson Browne, he did that album. It was a live album, but a lot of it was recorded. They recorded one song on the tour bus. They recorded some in motel rooms. They recorded some live, and you just listen to it and you look at the photos and you try and join the dots, and it became such a part of your life, And I think that's a sad thing now that there's so much good music being made now, but people don't get to live with the songs. There's like a tsunami of music coming out every day.
You're right.
Live with it like we used to.
Electronic distribution type mediums where you can just tap in and have your own playlist of everything, or something's just going to come at you. I think the biggest thing that changed my life as a young teenager was the birth of FM radio, but Triple M in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And, they started playing all this music, but the sound of it was way better than a little AM radio.
Mate, you'll like this. Late at 8 o'clock tonight, I've got another interview I'm doing. It's with a guy called Drew Chapman. And Drew he started at CFM up the coast, but he was the music director at Triple M for ages.
He was. I know that, mate.
Yeah, Chapo. So I'm going to have a chat, Drew Boy, we call him, and I'm going to have a chat to him later on, mate. And I'll mention
I'll be watching that episode too.
Mention that station changed your life, mate.
It did. Yeah, well, he introduced us into a whole lot of different. Well, he was the PD, was he? Programming director, was he?
Yeah, later. He wasn't at the early days.
Yeah.
I mean, early days,
he still
I think.
had an effect, I dare say, because there was music there that we hadn't really heard, and then the way that we heard it.
So did 4BK become Triple M, or did that become 105? Do you remember?
No, Triple M was on its own. There was no...
Okay.
Triple M was original. It never came from an AM station.
Right.
I think V105 came from 4BK.
Okay, you're right.
Remember the old Grab radio, Grab 1300, it's 4BK.
Yeah,
so
remember that.
That's what B105 became, yes.
Well, mate, I had a couple of my singles, one called Something About You, which charted on Stereo 10, which used to be 4AP, I think, before that.
I remember that, Stereo 10.
Stereo 10, yeah.
They tried to tell us that AM radio could be in stereo.
Yeah.
What a load of bullshit.
That was the evolution before the FM kicked in,
Yeah. I don't know, mate. They tried.
I should get some of those DJs on too. I remember Dave.
You should, mate. I wonder whatever happened to that Rod Lockington guy. And there was a few of them now. Their names.
I think it was Ray McGregor. I don't know if Ray's still with us, but
yeah,
I know Dave Daly is good mates. So I'll get Dave on the show.
Well, mate, as a side note, what was it that 4KQ they finished transmission a little while back, didn't they? Now they're one of those sports networks,
I think so. Yeah.
That was a major. That was a major point. Like, that was a big radio station for everyone.
Well, one of the things I'm interested in asking Drew about is what is the influence of radio these days? Because I have to say, personally, I hardly ever listen to radio. I'm always listening to podcasts or listening to Spotify playlists or things like that. I'm curious to know because back then, you'd hear the songs on the radio. Obviously, Countdown was a huge influence. You had
Mm.
Rage that was a huge influence. I was a regular on a TV show called Saturday Morning Jukebox up on
I
Channel
remember it.
Seven, which yeah, and that was like we had you had like maybe six outlets where you got all your music from, and that people say so much to me say, oh, the songs in the '80s and that was so great, but the difference was there's a lot of rubbish as well, and the good songs survived, but
Mm.
we got to hear. We got to know the songs so well because those six outlets or so were playing them continuously. Now, as I say, there's I think there's something like 10,000 songs a day released on
Isn't that
Spotify and
incredible?
those platforms.
You know what? I didn't know that statistic. That's incredible.
Yeah,
How do you
and
sift through that? I don't
well, you
know.
don't. And obviously, if you get with a big label, that's still the ones that break through. And occasionally, rarely a random will break through.
Mm.
Like the lad who did that song Richmond, North of Richmond type of thing, that type
Mm.
of stuff. But most artists being able to get your voice heard amongst that tsunami of songs is just
Mm.
getting tougher and tougher. So it's easier to make music now. It's easy to produce music and release it, but I think it's harder to be heard. And
Mm.
that's where we are. But anyway, Matt, we're going back to your story.
Yeah.
When
No,
did
no.
when did you get playing? When did you get playing?
Well, it all started, mate. I was at this. I can't even remember. It was at Brighton. I was at the Brighton Hall, some church thing, and I heard they had a country band or a bush band. I think it was the Bushwhackers or something, or I don't know if it was Buller McCann. Anyway, it was the Rantan Bush Band, possibly. I don't know.
Okay.
But I remember I talked to the committee, and I was only 17 or 18 at the time, and they said, "Oh no, we've got this great bush band." And I looked at him and I said, "What? What do you mean you got a bush band?" And they said they paid them $50 an hour, and it was a 3-hour gig. And I said, I literally, Nick, I said to them, "But me and my mates would do it better than that and cheaper." And they looked at me and went, "What are you in a band?" I said, "Oh yeah." I wasn't in a band.
Yeah.
But I knew a drummer and I knew a guitar player and and that was it. I literally went and we started jamming under a mate's garage and started playing these Queen songs and playing these other the hits of the time.
Yeah.
And I said, "Geez, we better do something serious here." So we were hired for that same gig for the next year, and
Well,
probably and that was it for me. I was off up and away.
so you saying your parents, had the Catholic Church background. I grew up in the Baptist Church, and
Mm,
I was actually influenced a lot by a lot of that. At my time, there was artists like Larry Norman and Randy Stonehill and all those. They were sort of gospel
mm.
rock artists around the place, and they were the first ones I really got to see live and with interest to. Did you like growing up through the church stuff? Did you hear any of the music that was coming through there?
Not well. The church was all hymns, but
Right.
and of course, yours truly was in the choir.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the primary school I went to was at St Pius at Banyo. Here's another little story. My classmate was none other than Trevor Gilmister, the state of origin legend,
Gilly.
the Axe, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, he was he was hot on the piano player's daughter, and he said, "Mate, how do I get to meet her?" And he said, "I want to get in the choir." I said, "Oh, I'll get you in the choir, mate. Just come with me." So he stood next to me, and I sang louder to make sure I covered up his voice. But yeah, funny days. But
I'll share a Gilly story with you because with back in the early 2000s, together with a poet, Rupert McCall, we wrote a song
what a
that,
wonderful man.
yeah, we wrote a song called Forever Queensland that got used as the official state of origin song for a few years. And we got to do a lot of stuff with the teams and the former origin greats, they call it. And I know Gilly reasonably well. And actually before the COVID thing, I'd written a show called Sunshine State of Mind Show, which was this live thing I'd done. It was a bit theatrical, and it was about me telling stories about Queensland. And the concept was that I had this vision where I had to go around and uncover the great stories of Queensland and find out what's at the core of our Queensland spirit and sell that to the world so we could save the world. And I needed someone to set up that scene. I need to say I was in my backyard and I saw this vision. And I got Gilly. I said to Trev, could you record this thing for me? And he became my vision that told me to go out and cover Queensland and
I
capture the
remember
stories.
this.
And yeah. So I got Gilly involved in that, mate. It was so good. He's such a good sport doing it. And I'll see if I can get him on one of these chats because
You should, mate. I think that's a really good idea.
Trevor's one of the
Illy
best
is a
Queensland blokes
great,
around.
he's a
Yeah,
great human being. I still keep in touch with
absolutely.
him. He's
Yeah.
come to gigs like when I was a promoter and promoting some of the major bands. I'd get him along. I brought him along when Shannon Noel was starting off and took him to the gig at Ipswich. And I said, can you give him a motivational? We were about to do a national tour. I said, give him a motivational speech with the band, just like you would have got back in the dressing room for Queensland. And he came
Yeah.
in and did it. They loved it, mate. Just he's a sterling fella, mate. I'm
Absolutely
proud to
great.
know him. Actually,
And
he's a
mate, he's
good.
like, yeah, obviously, he's like, tough as they come, like solid as they come. But he's about my height. He's not a tall guy. I'm a
He's
short
not
bloke.
that big, but he's
And to
tough.
think he was cutting down those big blokes out in that Origin field, mate. He's just a
Mate,
machine.
I remember at school he fell. It was a day when the concrete was wet and he fell face forward. This is how he lost his teeth. Fell face forward into the concrete. Literally picked up the teeth that fell out, put them back in his pocket, and kept going.
That
And there was
explains
an
a lot there.
indentation in the concrete. So they don't make these guys like that anymore.
No, Gilly is great. So, mate, what was your professional playing career when you in the early days?
Well,
What were you doing?
I went from mucking around, I suppose, to thinking, geez, I'm not half bad at this. Thinking I can sing. I always knew that I could sing, but I was extremely passionate to front a band. It was all about being in front of a band. So I joined a couple of other local bands. In those days, there was those great notice boards around. This is pre-Red Zeds, mate. So this is when it was Smithies. Remember Smithies?
I do.
In Roma Street? And
Yep.
then there'd be a notice board there. Anyway, and then there was that magazine. Oh, I can't remember the Brisbane magazine, but they'd have a Muso's Connection thing at the back. So you'd start meeting people. But the moment that I took it, I thought this could go somewhere, well, at the time I thought it would be serious, is when I met a guy called Tony Strisnick, is in my band today, the Meatloaf The Concert. And I just loved him. I thought he was a great guy and a great player. And that's where I met guys like Andy McDonald and other great musicians. And we all loved the same music. And they all ended up being Northside blokes that I'd never knew, really.
Yeah.
And then a lot of blokes, we would congregate. Another significant bloke, he wouldn't even know, but Barry Bull, Toombul Music.
Yeah,
What a man that connected so many dots for so many musicians. Those little sound bits, remember?
Yep.
Go in there and listen to one of the albums before you bought it. And then there was Dexter, who was the guitar. He was the music salesman in there, became friends with him, met everybody. And to this day, mate, connections today.
I think Toombul Music was probably one of the main ones that actually combined the selling of albums and stuff with instruments and everything else. And
I reckon
really
old Barry was ahead of his time. But when you saw
he's still writing books, he's still talking, and he's still
I've followed him a bit.
Stuff.
Yeah, I have to one day go to see one of his speeches or one of his presentations because he had a profound effect on me and a lot of guys. So but then it all went from there, mate. It just all of a sudden you're in a band and then you think you're playing gigs and you know how it used to go, mate.
So were you a full-time artist back then?
No, but I did eventually try to go full-time. And then I just got into cover bands. We had the usual booking agents that existed back then that we all remember.
Yep.
And, we all got shoved by in a way. But I always took to organising things really well. I really enjoyed organising the gigs. And I found that to be a passion, which I guess then the mighty tribute bands started. And there was a great band from over in Byron Bay or down that way called Bourbon Street.
Yeah, Bourbon Street. Yeah.
They played some gigs and then, everything. They'd play all these. These are the days, Nick, you remember. And people.
Who was the front man? Was it Leroy someone? Who was the front man, Bourbon Street?
It was a guy called Colin Germano, who is now in that band called Late for Woodstock. He's a very talented fella.
Okay.
and there was a guy called Horace playing guitar. They were fantastic.
Horace, that's what I was thinking of.
But then out of nowhere came this band called, I remember it was the Australian Door Show.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone went, there's a band just playing covers about one band. And then they became this tribute to the band.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of took things and made it single-handedly. Then there was an AC/DC one. Then all of a sudden, these shows started up everywhere. And these guys were working 6 nights a week and earning serious money.
Yep.
And on the road, on tour around Australia. And I thought, at that point in time, sadly, we would write songs, we would continually want to play our own music, but nobody was interested in us playing them. That was the hardest cop. And we were desperate to play. We wanted to play. And so, lo and behold, if people know who I am and they look at me and they go, geez, a big guy, bit of longer hair, he could, you could do a Meatloaf show because I sang in the same register and had the same similarity. And I was never a Meatloaf fan, to be honest with you. But yeah, I got a hold of that Bat Out of Hell album, and a couple of good friends of mine said, Rick, this is what we need to do. And I got a hold of it, and we practiced this thing for 8 months, mate. We had just ridiculous. And then all of a sudden, I was on the road as a full-time touring musician.
So what did you, obviously taking on Meatloaf, did you learn singing technically? Were you a trained
Never
singer?
once.
Oh, really?
Never had.
Okay.
I had one lesson once, and I just didn't like what this guy was talking about. And so I just never went back. And I found that you started to learn about your own voice. And then I think at one period when I was touring 6 nights a week and singing that music in its same key, that you realise after, well, hang on, not even the original artist did this. And when he tried to, he killed himself just about. His voice was ruined forever. Yep. But I went and saw a vocal therapist, speech therapist, and I learnt more from that person than anyone else, really.
Right. But that album, Bat Out of Hell, obviously, I think it was my senior year that came out, and it was so much part of our life at that time. But it was just Steinman, who was a guy who wrote most of the songs.
Jim Steinman,
of course.
And Todd Rundgren was the engineer and played all the guitars, who was here recently.
Engineered and produced it. Yeah, no, I heard the show he did just recently was absolutely amazing. I sort of
a couple of friends of mine said it was phenomenal. I think they got their Bat Out of Hell album signed by him.
Yeah, I know Meatloaf had other albums, but that album in particular is one of
the
standouts of
Do you know, Nick,
all
it's
time.
still the #1 selling album now in Australia of all time.
Wow.
It's still #1, mate. It's ridiculous. Like, we're talking, it's outsold Back in Black by AC/DC, our homegrown talents, and You're the Voice, or Whispering Jack by Farnham, another favourite of mine. And, it's sold more than them. It's just astonishing, mate.
I think the thing about Meatloaf, too, is that I was talking to Johnny Blunt from the Killer Queen Experience, and he was saying he considered himself to be more of an actor than a musician. He's acting that part. And I think back in that day with Meatloaf, he was great vocals, brilliant songs, but he also was a theatrical performer in what he was doing. And he brought those three things together in a unique way. Yeah.
Well, look at him. He appeared in Rocky Horror Picture Show. He'd had some acting skills there as well,
Absolutely. But he got to be eaten.
Sorry?
He got to be eaten.
He did. Slaughtered by the amazing Tim Curry as Frank.
Mate, Rocky Horror. I loved Rocky Horror, of course. That was my generation.
Great. Still is great.
But, mate, I played it to my kids one time, and they just didn't get it. They were like, Dad, why are you into this?
It's weird.
They didn't connect to. So it was definitely a time and a place thing. And Tim Rice.
I can't get my kids to connect to it either.
But back in the day, I remember people turning up to the midnight shows, and they'd go week after week after week dressed up in the costumes.
Wasn't it at the Valley Twin?
One of those
was
ones,
it the Village Twin or the Valley Twin Cinema? Mate, it had some unbelievable record, didn't it?
Yeah. It was it's an iconic moment. So, mate, so you were playing. You got into actually Okay, so you did the Meatloaf band back in those days, correct?
Yeah,
And then you got into, was it management or
promoting.
events promoting?
As a
Right.
promoter. Look, basically what I did is I I started running the Meatloaf tours I became the manager of the tour. So there was
Yep.
in those days, Nick, there was 8 of us in the band, and we had 4 crew and an 8-ton truck on the road, man.
Yeah.
So
Same with
it
our
was
band
this
back then. Yeah.
juggernaut ripping across the country,
Yeah.
and it needed managing. So this little black duck put his hand up and said, "I'll do that as well as sing in the band." And
Yeah.
then I started realizing I had this flair for it, I guess. And I started
Yeah.
getting involved in how they promoted or how the venues are promoted or how your show is promoted. And it becomes important to realize promotion. And then, I started taking over that aspect of it and did all right. And I guess, I went on to manage some comedy acts, and one of the comedians, we ended up having a support with Midnight Oil across the country. And then I met their agent.
Oh, we lost Rick.
Will we
Sorry,
start
I
again,
just
Nick?
no, I just do a little edit on that. That's fine.
You there,
So you're
mate?
talking about you met their agent?
Nick, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
What happened there? Uh, hello, Nick.
Yeah, I can hear you.
What happened there?
You got me back, mate.
Nick, someone tried to ring me. How dare they?
That's okay, mate. That's what I'm saying. I'll edit this little bit out.
Yeah, all
So
good,
I'll edit
mate.
this out. So we'll just go back to a point you were
Yeah,
talking. We were talking about an
I
agent.
met. We were on tour with Midnight Oil, which was a hell of a tour. You can imagine Midnight Oil. This is 97, 98.
Okay.
And we would 6 nights a week around the country in the old days, and you got to know the band quite well, but then I got to know their agent really well, and we just clicked, I guess. And then he realised I was in Queensland, he realised what I was doing, and he said, "Have you ever thought about going out on your own, mate, and doing something? And if you ever do, let me know, give me a call, mate." In those days, it was just, you didn't think about it. I just went and did it.
Yep.
And I gave this guy a call, and all of a sudden he's gone, "Well, what can you do with this? And what can you do with this?" And I guess I was really, really hungry for it, Nick. I'd be on the phone all the time, getting these gigs that he'd never heard of, finding these things. And it impressed him. And, mate, to be honest, I'm still friends with that guy today.
Mate, why did you stop doing it?
Well, that rotten thing called COVID
Mm-hmm.
smashed me for a 6.
Yep.
And look, I had a tough time in 19, Nick. I had 4 tours. Look, I guess I'll just say this in the quickest terms that I can. I went on to work with the biggest acts in Australia, mate.
Yep.
I toured
Well,
them all over Queensland.
I remember I had a producer from China come out here, Lee Jer, and we took him
I
to multiple
remember
of the
that
shows
well.
you were doing with Ivor Davies, and
Ivor
you were
Davies and Ice
running that one.
House, mate. The Angels, when they
Mm-hmm.
reformed with Doc Neeson, I spent hours in the car with Doc Neeson, with Ian Moss,
Mm-hmm.
with Jimmy Barnes, with all of them. I worked with all of them, mate. And then I started, this international promoter found out what I did, and then he engaged me to represent him to book shows here in Queensland. And I did Guns N' Roses and Korn for him. And the biggest gig I've ever done in my life would have been back in 2012, was one of the Kiss farewell tours, but I did Kiss, Motley Crue, and Thin Lizzy.
Mm.
And
Well, mate, if I can just ask you then, when you're working with those acts and the international acts, and this is a very naive question, I'm probably asking it because a lot of other people are going to be naive as well. Was that, as a promoter in those things, was that a very profitable business?
look, it had its moments. When I first started things were a lot better than what they ended up being in the end.
Hmm.
So I probably came in on the end of what was a bit of the glory periods of being a promoter or in Australia. So, mate, I actually booked the first tour for Human Nature when
Wow.
they were still doing their best of for the
Yeah.
pop band.
Yeah.
And then they became, and the agent that I mentioned to you before, he came up with that whole concept of the Motown thing. And then I booked that tour. That was a monstrous tour, mate. That worked well.
How much
And
how much risk does a promoter in that?
everything.
Obviously, you got the big promoters who bring out those big acts like the Ed
Oh,
Sheerans,
you
whatever, and
risk everything, mate.
they're millions of dollars. As in the lower level, that you're still risking everything. You're punting on
Everything,
everything.
Nick. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
everything. Like I had credit cards out 50K maxes, mate, and two
Yeah,
or three of them. You don't
yeah,
get paid till everyone else is paid at the end of the year, but it's everything that you book, mate. Flights, com, ground,
yeah.
and all the ticketing, all the marketing, the whole box and dice, mate. You're paying for the lot and you're bankrolling it.
Mm.
And it's an enormous risk. But when you're in the game and you're rolling and you're moving forward, I started another leg of the business, which was like a Happy Days Records, doing these old school 50s and 60s style shows where
Hmm.
I got very close to our mutual friend Richie York.
I was just going to mention, mate, there's someone we should talk about.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree with you, mate.
yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
it was a huge risk, Nick. There was some profits, but Jesus, there were some punches too, mate.
Right. But you'd have to be the type of personality, which I think you have, mate, who actually thrives on the challenge. Would that be right?
Yeah, I did. I met
Yeah.
Chuggy once, Michael Chug, the legend himself, and
Hmm.
I did a lot of work for Michael Gudinski. I was essentially his Queensland lad up here.
Yeah.
That his office from Melbourne and Sydney used to run a lot of work through me
Yeah.
because I delivered, I guess. And
Yeah.
but I remember each of them at separate times said to me, they just said, "You're not a promoter till you lose everything, mate."
Yeah.
And I'd go, "I don't want to lose everything,"
Yeah.
but you know what? I did, and
And people, I think people don't realize too, you're juggling between working with like those national level promoters. Job comes to you, and then you're also working with the local agents here and the venues and everything else. So you're a
yeah,
middleman amongst a pool of people who all need to make a quid.
Nick, absolutely, and mate, it took a toll. Look, I won't lie, and you've got to be honest with yourself about everything, and that is, I missed out on the formative years of my two daughters.
Wow.
That's been the
Yeah.
toughest thing for me to cop. I was
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
all the time. There's
Yeah.
not, excuse me, there's nobody in the game that we're in, Nick, that does something to the fullest of your own potential without sacrificing things.
Sure.
And that was, mate, it's taken me a long time to mend those bridges,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there was a divorce in amongst it all there.
Yeah.
And without going too personally into it, but it was messy. But
Yeah.
all along, you're supposed to answer that phone, and it was 7 days and
That's
seven
right.
nights a
That's
week.
right. That's what people think. Even with me, like local musicians too, they turn up for the gig and they think, oh, you're getting a good hourly rate for that, but they don't realise you actually don't turn off for 7 days. You're actually working on what you're doing every day, and you wake up. Can you hear me?
I got you, Nick. Beauty. Can you hear me?
I'm losing. No, yeah, but I can't see you. There you go. You're back.
Sorry, mate. I've just sent them a text
Anyway,
too, so that should be it.
right.
But yeah, mate.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I've got some editing to do. It's good. But yeah, but mate, along the way, as all the struggles we've had, we do get to meet some amazing people. And I know
oh
you could
hell yeah.
talk for hours about the people you met, but if we just focus in on one for a moment, and you mentioned before a gentleman, Mr. Richie York, who's
Yes.
probably one of the most beautiful people I've ever met, who was also complicated, and
Yep.
had ridden it. How'd you meet Richie?
I met Richie at, believe it or not, a gig that I promoted at Kedron Wavell Services Club.
Yeah.
That and that was in the early days of we did a show called Six Strings and the Works, and it was Mossy and John Stevens, and there was
Hmm.
one other act who I can't remember. Um, but they did acoustic tours. And at the time, everyone was going, acoustic? What are you doing acoustic for? And people didn't understand it. But let me tell you, we sold that gig out. We sold a lot of those gigs out. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy sitting there, because I knew of Richie before I'd met him. And then I saw his name on the guest list for my gig. And I said, right, I'm going to step in and meet this guy tonight. And that's when I sat down with him and I went, g'day, mate, I'm the promoter. My name's Rick Szabo and welcome to the show. Did what I do best. You still hear me, mate? Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, I looked after him, looked after his beautiful girl, Minnie, and showered them with, nice drinks and food and stuff like that. And, mate, to be honest, after the show had gone, I made sure that he got to meet Mossy and so forth. And he wrote a beautiful letter to Gudinski, who Gudinski's label had actually released the record via one of the Mushroom subsidiaries, and wrote Gudinski a beautiful note and mentioned me in the note. And we never looked back. I was at his house once a week.
Yeah, I will do an episode where I bring everyone up to speed on Richie, but he's passed these days. But just so people know what in the context we're talking here, I actually got to meet Richie when I came back from. I met Richie actually in the. I'd come back from America in '94, and my album, and it was either Jamie Dunn or Greg Shaw at the time introduced me to Richie, who at that time was the music editor for the Courier Mail. He'd come back from Canada then. His first wife had been very sick and she passed away, and he came back and he was working then. And I this guy turned up to interview me in this sort of beat up car he had, and he had his Hawaiian shirt on and shorts and everything else, and we had a great chat and got on really well. And I found out later on that he was actually had been the editor of Rolling Stone in Canada. He had been John Lennon's publicist through the whole Years of Peace. Everything. He was at Apple when the Beatles broke up. He organised for Lennon to play in Canada at a festival that really gave John the idea that he could do things solo. He was a major part of John Lennon's life and Yoko Ono's. And he came after all that. He came back and he as I say, when his wife was sick, they came back to Australia and lived here. And he became the editor at the Sunday Mail, the music editor at the Sunday Mail. And Richie was a major player in the success of Powderfinger. He was he would support people like myself who he didn't have to support. He liked
I wished he was here when we were younger.
He was just amazing, and I'm so blessed. He wrote the liner notes on some of my albums, and he didn't have to like my music, but he did because he honestly believed in it. And he was just he was a music journalist who had he wrote the official biography for Led Zeppelin, the official biography for Van Morrison. It was just a major power
Richie
force.
was the real deal, mate.
Absolutely. He was the last guy. It was a phone interview, but he was the last guy to interview. Crikey.
Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix.
He's got the hat, mate.
He's got Richie's. He's got Jimi Hendrix's hat and all that. I
know.
He's got all this.
It's frightening. Mate,
he actually has a whole pile of tapes that he would never release, and he said he'd never release, of a private interview he did with Jimmy Page, where a lot of the dark side came out about what was going on in that time with Zeppelin. And
Richie York,
out of respect for the band, he just would never.
He wouldn't say it. He's the real deal, mate. Richie, he lived some of the most significant moments in rock music, and the guy spent time with me after the Ian Moss and John Stevens gig for hours talking music. Then wrote Gudinski a nice thank you about the gig and what a great idea it was, and mentioned myself to Gudinski, which was just amazing. And I just got so much love for him. I was living at his place every week for years after that.
Yeah, well, of course, later in his life, he met his childhood friend, Minnie, and they ended up getting married and became, she actually, I think, got him a lot of extra years of his life.
She did. She is absolutely responsible for having him on this planet longer for all of us. And I went to her 70th, mate, a few months ago. Got up and sang a song. Sang You're the Voice.
Yeah.
That woman still knows how to have fun. Let's put it that way.
She's a party girl.
Yeah.
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 I'll have to get Minnie on, and we'll have to do a thing about Richie.
I reckon
Szabo
she'd be a great podcast,
Yeah.
mate.
Well, I might do a me and Minnie on for a chat too.
Yeah.
Through so that'd be good fun.
That better be a double episode, mate.
Mate, so let's get up to date. These days, you've put the band back together. You're doing the Meatloaf show again.
Crazy, isn't it? Look. Bottom line is, mate, I had a bad year before COVID. I was making a comeback, and then COVID came and destroyed me a second time.
Yeah, I hear you.
Mate, I disappeared off the face of the earth. It knocked me for a six, mate.
Yeah.
You know, I was scrounging. Thank God I got that job keeper that was around at the time.
Yeah.
And I disappeared to Mackay. I knew some beautiful people there who I'd met through a mate of mine here. They were tattooists, and I stayed at their house, knew a venue manager, got a job driving a courtesy bus, mate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to spend 6 months with elderly people who completely changed my outlook on everything, because to them it was, God willing, if I'm there next week to see you, Rick, I look forward to seeing you and all this sort of stuff. I mean, God willing, man, I'll see you next week. He said, mate, no guarantees in this life. I could be dead tomorrow. Yeah. And it changed me. And these people, they embraced me, and I had a beautiful girl here at home and 2 daughters, and they kept in touch, and they hung in there, you know, for me, because I was messy, mate. I was messy. But the birth of my grandson 4 years and 2 months ago, I came home, re-educated myself in certain things in construction, landed a job here for a couple of years, and I've not looked back, but I couldn't give up the music, mate. So, yeah, went back to playing the music and reinvented the Meatloaf thing, because he died from COVID. Mm-hmm. And Steinman went nearly a year before him. And I said, if there's going to be a time to do it, now's the time to do it. So back better than ever, mate. And we sold out the Tivoli. Happy days.
Well, as I said to you, I was talking to Johnny Blunt recently from the Killer Queen Experiences, which is one of the greatest tribute shows around anywhere. He hasn't seen the show live, but he was looking at stuff that he'd done online, and he was talking about when people look at detail and what they put into the show and how they do it. He thought that what you were doing was very high quality and up there. So
I'm humbled by that, because John's pretty damn good at what he does.
He's very good, mate. He's very good.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
So
but
what's
mate,
coming?
The story's not over, mate. We're still,
no,
61 later this year, mate.
Mm-hmm.
And
coming into your prime,
mate. I reckon. Yeah.
So what do you got coming up? What do we?
I've got about 8 shows that I've got booked, and we're playing theatres now, mate. It's a $70 ticket, mate. You know, none of this $5 or $10 at the old RSL or it's like a theatre. But mate, with that comes, hey, we've all got to put our money in our hands in our pockets to hire these venues and promote them. And lucky for me and lucky for the band, I've done all this before, so I can I sort of know what I'm doing with it, and we're having some good success with it, mate. You know, playing some great venues.
I'll get you to message me with where people can see about your shows, and I'll edit them into it all.
Thanks,
mate. I think, mate, if you're okay, I'd like to get you back numerous times, as I say, with Minnie, and we'll just keep bringing other people on, and we have a chat together.
I'd love to, mate. Yeah, good,
mate. Thanks for your time tonight. Anything else that you'd like? Anything else that you wanted to cover off?
So happy that you asked me, mate. And look, I just want to say one more thing. Is just really, I just want to tell people, when you think you're down and out and you are gone, you must remember this: that the real people in your life are the ones that will show up for you, and when they do, you will be able to do anything. And I'm living proof of it, mate.
Good on you, buddy. Good on you.
Good on you,
Thank
Nick.
you for that
Thanks,
message.
mate. You're
Love you, Rick.
mate.
Good to talk to you, mate. We'll
great to
catch
talk
up
to you,
again.
Nick. Thank God for Nick Phillips and your profile in the Queensland music industry, mate, because we need you.
Mate, I'm just too stupid to
I
haven't figured out how to stop. I just got to keep going.
No. We're like the State of Origin players, mate. I've said it all along. We won't go.
That's it. I do have to get Gilly on. I'll have to give Gilly a call.
I'd love to get him on.
Yeah.
See you, mate.
All right, mate. Thank you.
All the best, Nick.